Hi, my name is Kaylee Dompier, and I'm a survivor of fibrosing mediastinitis. I was diagnosed in March of 2005, so this is February of 2011, and I'm still here. At the time that I went into the emergency room, I was coughing up blood, couldn't breathe, and the doctors ran some tests, and upon getting them about to release me, I was misdiagnosed again with having bronchitis. And while the doctor was about to write the prescription for the bronchitis, she received a phone call that I needed to be held for further tests. The test showed that there was something on my lungs. I was at Rockdale Hospital in Conyers, Georgia, and I was transferred on Easter Sunday to DeKalb Medical Center. By the time I got to DeKalb Medical, I was coughing up so much blood, they couldn't figure out where the blood was coming from. So some tests were ran. That week, I was actually given about 48 hours to live. I was given about 48 hours to live, but I was in the hospital for a week before they could find out what was actually going on with me, and the doctors were going to release me and treat me as an outpatient. I had no insurance. So on that Sunday, one of the doctors came in, let me know that we'll be being released on Monday. And Monday, when the paperwork was being processed for me to be released, the machine started to go off in the room, and the nurses started to rip and run pretty fast, and I didn't know what was going on. I was on the phone with my husband, letting him know that he needed to get to the hospital right away. He was already on his way to come pick me up. And when I came to, I was on a respirator. Apparently I had been in and out of consciousness over a few weeks' time. And at this time, they still didn't know what my condition was or what was wrong with me. My family actually did the research. The doctors were saying that the fibrosing was so bad that I would suffocate on the respirator. So it was more dangerous for me to be on the respirator, which was breathing for me, than for me to be off of it. So they decided that they were going to pull the plug. And my husband and my family members literally had to beg them not to. And the date that they decided to do that actually fell on my, who's 11 years old now, daughter's birthday, which was April 9th. And my husband asked them to please not let that be the time that they take me off, because he didn't want her to remember her birthdays as the day that her mother passed. So they proceeded to have a birthday party for her, brought pictures back to the hospital for me to see. And at the same time, family members were still on the internet doing research, trying to find what my condition was, or if there was someone else in the country that was like me. Eventually, one case was found that was in Oregon. And apparently the person that had the same condition that I had, she had one good lung. I had no lungs, pretty much. I was functioning off of less than 60% of my left lung. My right lung was completely crystallized. We later found out that the blood was coming from the calcification. There was a cast that surrounded my lungs. Like when you look at the CT scans or the x-rays of my lungs, it was completely white with one clear spot. And that clear spot is what I was breathing off of. So they were, trying to find out what it was. Dr. Schulman actually contacted the doctor that was in Oregon to figure out what was done and what worked and what didn't. And the doctors here still didn't want to try the tamoxifen or the prednisone combination because they weren't sure it was going to work, and since it was one case, they didn't feel like it was worth trying. But eventually, my husband and my brother-in-law convinced the doctors. They were saying, well, since you said she's going to die anyway, why not try it? So a couple of the other doctors actually signed off on doing the experiment. And shortly, or a couple of weeks after they administered the tamoxifen, they started to see some changes in my breathing. And I would overhear the doctors that came in to check up on me or listen to my lungs. One doctor actually said my right lung was getting better. And when you think about it, the calcification was so serious, They couldn't perform a stent because the needle wouldn't penetrate the calcium. Couldn't do a transplant, and the doctor that was at Emory at the time that Dr. Schulman took my records over to, happened to be in town from the Mayo Clinic out of Florida. And he looked at my charts and he said that money wasn't an issue. I needed a heart and a lung transplant. And even if we had the heart and had the lungs to do the transplant, there was nothing to attach the organs to because everything was calcified. And he said money wasn't an issue. If he could do it, he would have me at the hospital transferred the next day and do the surgery himself. But there was nothing to attach it to. I would bleed to death on the table. And he told my husband, if she were my wife, I would let her go in peace. I'm so sorry, but there's nothing I can do. And that was like the final person that we were waiting on, the expert that we were waiting on, that it's possible that something could be done. So after that, it was just an uphill battle. And finding out that, being able to, when my brother-in-law found the doctor that used the tamoxifen, that was a miracle in itself. Getting the doctors, a team together that put their licenses on the line to try it, that was a miracle in itself. And even the response that I had, I couldn't talk, so I would write. And I still have all the notes that I would write to people that came to visit, or they came to pray, or came to give us some kind of hope. And I have the note that I wrote to one nurse: I will walk out of here walking, talking, breathing, and alive. And that's what I did. But over time, I could feel, and I still, even today, I still feel my lungs when I breathe, when I inhale and exhale. I'm not on oxygen. I'm not on a respirator. I still use the tamoxifen and the prednisone when I have a flare-up. Right now, I have a flare-up maybe once or twice a year. And I know the tamoxifen works because when it happens in the flare-up, when I say flare-up, I mean I'll start coughing up blood, or I get tight in the chest. But when I use the tamoxifen, it's almost immediately that the results start to kick in. I'll use it for 3 weeks and wean myself off, and everything's back to normal. I can breathe easier. There's no bleeding. There's no struggle. But that's what works. And I've been trying to share this information and trying to get this out for other people that are being diagnosed with fibrosing. And I've met people on Facebook. We have a page, People with Fibrosing Mediastinitis, and we converse a lot, try to keep each other uplifted and stay positive. And I've shared the information about the tamoxifen and asked them to ask their doctors about it, but their doctors aren't as responsive to it because there's no information out there that's saying that this actually works. But I can say that it works because when I do have a flare-up, I use it and it works for me. But I want to be able to share this and help others that are suffering and waiting on stents or waiting on transplants, knowing that if you get a stent done, it's eventually going to close back up because of the calcification. Or if you're waiting on a transplant, there may not be anything to attach it to because of the amount of scar tissue. And just, seeing and hearing how people are going through struggles with breathing or can't go outside because it's too hard to get up. But here I am. I have a 3-year-old daughter now. I'm still running a business. I keep myself busy, stay positive. Even with the medication, I still take different vitamins and herbs to keep my body strong and built up. But hopefully this will start a ball rolling to help others and to help other people survive. And I am a survivor.